Sudan's foreign ministry says the paramilitary rapid support forces have killed 433 civilians, including children, in attacks in the past 3 days. The fighters are said to have attacked villages around the al-Gitaina in White Nile State, south of the capital Khartoum. Gitaina was the first city captured by the RSF in December 2023. Hiba Morgan has the latest from Khartoum.
The Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces have been locked in battles in the state of White Nile, just south of the capital Khartoum. Now, we know from local responders that the RSF launched attacks on multiple villages on the outskirts of al-Gitaina in White Nile, and that at least 433 civilians have been killed, according to the Sudanese Foreign Ministry. We also spoke to local responders who say that some of the victims of these attacks, that include direct attacks and artillery strikes by the RSF, have been thrown in the river, and that there were several others who were critically wounded as a result of the attacks. So they say that they expect the death toll from the attacks on several villages on the outskirts of al-Gitaina to continue climbing in the coming hours and days, and that the number that has been given by the Sudanese Foreign Ministry is not final and may be much higher. Now, the Sudanese Foreign Ministry says that regional countries and the international community should take a tough stance on the rapid support forces, describing their actions as terrorist attacks on civilians, targeting civilians in vengeful attacks. Over the past few days, the rapid support forces has been losing ground to the Sudanese army here in the capital, forcing them to flee towards the southern parts of the capital and into al-Gitaina, which is on the outskirts of which borders the southern part of the capital Khartoum, once they cross Jebel Awliya, one of the main bridges that the RSF controls. So civilians in al-Gitaina and in White Nile State are concerned that with the RSF fleeing from the capital Khartoum, using the Jebel Awliya bridge to get into White Nile State, they may be subjected to more and more attacks, and there may be more loss of lives in the coming days and weeks. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
Elbashir Idris is an independent Sudan analyst and activist. He joins us live now from Cardiff in the UK. Elbashir, thanks for being with us on Al Jazeera. Let me ask you first, where do things stand when it comes to the conflict in Sudan now?
Well, the conflict at this moment, it's almost completed 2 years. However, this conflict has been noted as the world's worst humanitarian crisis ever recorded, and that is due to the actions of the belligerents on the ground, one much more disproportionately more than the other. Unfortunately, this war has seen a lot, and I mean a lot, of extreme violations that have not been heard within the international community and to the outside world. And because of that, it's led to the continuation of violence on conflict. And it seems that the teeth that the international community once had, that being international law, has become toothless in its ability to stop this war. None of its international laws, sanctions, or embargoes have yet to be implemented properly, meaning that the outcome of this war will only be left to those on the ground.
Elbashir, how emboldened has Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who's the head of the Sudanese armed forces, how emboldened has he become of late? Because the SAF has had a string of victories these past few months. How much of an impact is that having on things?
Well, its counter-offensives, Burhan's and the Sudanese armed forces counter-offensive started on the 26th of September last year, when it started a counter-offensive in Khartoum. Ever since then, the army has been doing amazing wins and gains throughout the territory of Sudan. Just this time last year, there would have been many who would have debated SAF's future existence. However, now it's a very different story. The way that the Sudanese armed forces have conducted themselves and have, though it has many problems, it has been much better than the rapid support forces. Because of that, it's allowed them to win the hearts of many within on the ground who have been under RSF control for almost 2 years. May I ask a question? After all this time, since the start of this war, especially in rapid support force areas, we haven't seen a government, we haven't seen any sort of issue of control IDs, we haven't seen the implementation of law, we haven't seen proper humanitarian responses through the RSF's body called SAHO. What we're seeing is not only the emboldenment of Burhan, but really the glee of the Sudanese people who have been under this occupation for almost 2 years to come out of that. And the Sudanese army, it's not what it used to be a few years ago, even before that. Now it's made up of volunteers, young bodies, and young women and men who have essentially taken up arms under the banner of the Sudanese armed forces to clear out this mess. So not only one can say that Burhan is emboldened, but it's also the Sudanese people who have found themselves after being kicked very heavily for a long time, that they've started to fight back. And that is why they're much more willing to respond to the Sudanese armed forces than to the rapid support forces.
All right, that's Elbashir Idris. He's an independent Sudan analyst and activist joining us from Cardiff in the UK. Thanks so much, Elbashir.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.